Today I have a mini beauty drama video for you. These are videos I didn't think we could quite make into a longer, like Sunday video, but still interesting to talk about. Before I get into it, watch this video.
I don't care if I get blacklisted, you have the right to know this information. This was in the Korean news, which means you won't hear about it in the US market. According to the Ministry of Food and Drug Safety in Korea, Medicube by APR has been ordered to suspend advertising for violations of the Cosmetics Act. Basically, in simple terms, Korea's version of the FDA has caught Medicube breaking the law with how they were advertising their products, and they got told to stop their advertising. Specifically for their one-day Exosome Pore Ampoule 2000 and the one-day Exosome Shot Pore Ampoule 7500. Those two specific products were being marketed in a way that made it sound like they were medical treatments, like they could actually heal or restructure your skin on a clinical level, but cosmetics and medicine are two completely different categories under the law. Skincare can claim to hydrate, protect, and improve the appearance, but it cannot legally claim to treat, repair, or regenerate skin the way a drug or medical procedure can. Medicube was blurring that line. I work hard for my money. I'm sure you work hard for your money, and we deserve to spend our money on places that are actually honest with us.
So as you may have gathered from that, Medicube recently had advertising pulled in Korea. And when I first saw that headline or that information and the multiple times I was tagged in these videos, I thought it was going to be something quite dramatic that we're usually used to. Usually when a brand gets flagged, you think there's an ingredient issue, a safety concern, some child's been burnt again, something along those lines, you know? But it really wasn't. It was specifically about how certain products were being advertised. As I mentioned, I was tagged in this video a lot and it seems to be getting a lot of attention, but whilst I'm not here to stick up for Medicube, this isn't the first time something like this has happened, and it won't be the last. First of all, I just presume everybody knows this brand because they are everywhere. But if you aren't familiar, here's a little introduction to Medicube. So they sit under a company called APR Company, which started out in online retail and quickly expanded into beauty devices and direct-to-consumer sales. Medicube itself launched as a more, I guess you could say, like problem-focused skincare brand. Early products were aimed at things like acne, excess oil, visible pores, which gave them a very clear positioning compared to more general skincare lines. And honestly, this is the kind of brand I wish I had as a teenager with like multiple skincare concerns. What really pushed them forward was how quickly they scaled internationally. They didn't rely heavily on traditional retail at first, and a lot of their growth came through online channels, particularly in the US and Southeast Asia, using influencer marketing, TikTok Shop, of course, and direct sale. By the time their devices and newer ingredient-led products started gaining traction, they had already had a strong global presence and a very recognizable brand identity. They have a long list of genuinely viral products, but I hadn't actually heard of the two products that came under scrutiny here. So going back to this, there were two products that were called out, and they are the Medicube One Day Exosome Shot Pore Ampoule 7500, Medicube One Day Exosome Pore Ampoule 2000. Despite me not even hearing about these products, these aren't small products in their range. These are part of Medicube's more recent push into what they position as advanced, clinic-inspired skincare, something that we are seeing a lot of beauty brands doing with the rise of longevity in skincare. A trigger word there. Both are ampoules, so essentially ampoules are meant to be like more concentrated serums. They're not so much nowadays, but the way they've been marketed makes them feel like something a little bit more than that. The regulator involved here is, of course, Korea's Ministry of Food and Drug Safety, which oversees cosmetics, food, and pharmaceuticals. They reviewed the advertising for these two products and decided that it could lead consumers to believing that they had effects closer to a medical treatment than just like a topical skincare product. And there's actually a specific phrase for this in Korea, which is this here, which you see like in all the filings, which literally translates to advertising that can make people mistake cosmetic for a medicine. And that's the exact issue that they flagged here. And when you look at how these products have been promoted, you can actually see how that happens, how these products are getting flagged. But I kind of want to open this up to Medicube and K-beauty online in general, and that kind of medicine-y clinical talk that a lot of brands are going into. So focusing on Medicube, really, first of all, their content is so visual. And I say content because it's really because of TikTok that this brand is so popular, and where I believe they are doing most of their selling. The money that they made in their first month of being on TikTok Shop is insane. When content creators make content around Medicube products, You're shown skin in extreme close-ups, right? You see the before. Their products are used in certain ways that look like some kind of clinical treatment. Dots on the faces, there's capsules, there's peels. Then you're shown the after, everything's more smoother, like a lot more refined. There's a really strong before and after, with that result often being shown straight after use of the products. Sometimes it's framed as a very quick improvement. Either way, the structure of these videos is always the same, and influencers seem to follow these same structures when reviewing K-beauty in general. Skin problems shown very clearly, product applied in a way that isn't normal, then improvements shown just as clearly. Honestly, a lot of these, like obviously this isn't all influencers, I'm a skincare influencer mainly over on TikTok, a lot of the afters are filters, but it's that visual use of the product that changes how the product feels completely. And it stops feeling like a standard serum or ampoule and really does start to feel closer to something you get done in a clinic. But let's be fair, right? As I said, this isn't just a Medicube thing. This is a much wider shift across skincare at the moment that is becoming pretty relentless. If you look at what's trending, a lot of it is directly influenced by clinic treatments. And I don't hate this. I think it's interesting to see what's being done in clinic, take it out into skincare, but also be realistic about it. Ingredients like Exosomes and PDRN, which have a lot of medical research, for example, skin boosters are originally injectable treatment. Even devices like Medicube's AHR tools are designed to look and feel like simplified versions of professional equipment. At the same time, clinic treatments themselves are much more visible than they used to be. So we can easily compare skincare to in-clinic treatments too. People share them openly on social media. You see the process, you see the results, and those results are often very clear and often look like skincare results because people are pretending they're getting those results from their skincare products. Like, people are literally flying to South Korea in mass to get 10 clinical treatments done in one day. It's a social media trend. So skincare started to position itself kind of alongside that, right? Not as a replacement exactly, but as something that can give you a version of those results at home or kind of like help maintain them. Supposedly, allegedly. And as you can imagine, that's where things start to get blurry, right? Because the closer skincare gets to that world, the more it starts to be judged in the same way. The results start to be judged in the same way. So coming back to the Medicube products, a big part of the marketing is based around exosomes. Exosomes are real, right? They're tiny vesicles, I think they're called, that cells release, and they're involved in cell communication. In medical research, they're being studied for things like tissue repair and regenerative processes. So that's what I think skincare brands are trying to tell you that you get when you apply it topically. So when a skincare product does use them, it immediately sounds advanced and credible, right? It's science, right? The issue is how that science applies to topical skincare. The stronger research involving exosomes is early stage or linked to clinical treatments, often procedures like lasers or microneedling. There isn't strong, widely accepted evidence showing that applying an exosome-based cosmetic to intact skin will create the same kind of biological changes on the skin. Does that, it's not, it doesn't work in skincare, is what I'm trying to say. We are used to this sort of marketing now though, right? But what a lot of people don't realize is that they're being tricked into thinking it can possibly give the same results. Not as skincare savvy people, but mainly the type of people you see selling these products on TikTok Shop, for example. So this is a multi-brand thing, right? But why has Medicube been picked on recently? Called out, should I say. So regulators look at more than just wording when they assess this sort of thing. There's a few things they consider. They consider the language used, of course, the visuals shown, and how a typical consumer is likely to interpret both together. So even if a claim isn't directly stated, if the overall impression suggests deeper biological effects, it can still be considered misleading. And Medicube seems to be great at all of that, using all the above to create engaging content and adverts. And this wasn't limited to Medicube. Medicube are getting called out online, but around the same time, other brands were flagged as well. Some other very, very popular Korean brands like Dr. G had advertising suspended for a sunscreen product. In fact, one of my favorite sunscreens I'm using right now. In that case, the report said that the issue was that the advertising claim, didn't match what had actually been approved as a functional cosmetic. So in Korea, sunscreens are classified as functional cosmetics, which means that SPF and certain claims are reviewed and approved. If the advertising goes beyond that, it can be restricted. Mamonde had a specific product flagged, Peony something trouble, peony trouble balm? That product received an advertising suspension as well, with regulators stating that the way it was promoted could mislead consumers. If you look at how Medicube has grown, this outcome makes sense, really. They've built their brand on strong visual marketing, close-ups, those before and afters, weird ways of applying the product that look somewhat clinical, repeated time and time again across multiple creators. And I feel like it's created its own genre of skincare content, and the same kind of content appearing again and again and again, which reinforces that message. And again, not unique to K-beauty, I always feel like I have to say this. Western brands approach the same idea, but in a very different way that I feel like a lot of us are numb to now. I feel like K-beauty heavily markets around clinical ingredients, PDRN, Exosomes, NAD. In the West, it's more, I guess, like scientific sounding result claims, clinically proven, dermatologists developed, target signs of aging at a cellular level is one. In fact, there was a case involving the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, and L'Oreal, probably no surprises there. Advertising for Lancome Genifique suggested that the product could influence gene activity and biological processes. The FTC, of course, challenged those claims because the evidence provided didn't support that level of effect. So this exists across the industry as a whole. The wording changes, the presentation often changes too, but the advertising goal is similar, right? Positioning products as more advanced, more effective, more scientifically grounded. But this has always been around, no? This has always happened. Advertising brands love to lie in their advertising. But I feel like what's changed recently is just how visible everything is. Social media really does reward content that shows clear and immediate results because it's so engaging. So brands create content that fits that, often leading to fake results, fake claims, and products looking like they work at a completely different level, or people presume it is. The issue with the Medicube situation is that the presentation creates an impression that went beyond what cosmetics are allowed to claim. There we go, summed up the whole video. So whilst I'm not surprised this information is getting the attention of everyone online, this isn't an isolated incident. Medicube are just a lot more popular right now than other brands, so it's a big deal to a lot of people who know the brand or use the brand. This is just an example of how marketing, especially visual marketing, can move ahead of what regulation allows. But I do feel like Medicube are unique in the way that this has happened. As I've mentioned, Medicube built a whole brand around visible results, visual impact, and visual product usage, going viral nearly every single time with every single product they release. And when you team those with scientific sounding words and outplaced product claims, things can get very messy and slightly annoying. But I do wonder, do brands just do this on purpose? Is the end result more attention equals more money? Like, so what if they get banned from advertising in a particular way for a few months? You know, they've made their claims, they've got their money, they've sold their product. What's a ban gonna do now, right? Everybody knows of this product already, but let me know what you think in the comments down below. It's still a big deal, it's just not unique to Medicube. But yeah, hope you enjoyed this mini beauty drama, and I'll see you next time.